welcome to my channel. Well, this is going to be mostly a rambly video. I'm not going to, get into a lot of history and stuff like that. It's just my history with mainly this Svea 123. I believe this is an R. There's a 123 and a 123R. And basically, before the internet and everything else, this was the way you were influenced by stuff. Books, magazines, possibly television shows or movies, but usually if you wanted to learn about some subject, you went to a library or you bought, a bookstore and you bought something like this. Now, when I got into camping and backpacking and stuff like that, was, of course, as a kid, we'd go out hunting occasionally and stuff like that, but that was, there was a cabin already there and stuff, and occasionally you do campfire stuff, but everything was, was right there. And when I got in the military, one of the bases that I was stationed at was Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana, in Shreveport, Louisiana. And it's a big base. It's houses B-52s. I think to this day it still does. And it's home, I believe, of the 8th Bomb Wing, which was famous in World War II for bombing a lot of stuff, but over in Germany. And that base was huge, and it had on base, I believe, a 20,000-acre reservation with lakes. You could go fishing, hunting, camping, and all that other stuff. So I was in the Air Force, so usually on the weekends we would get a day or two off, and I'd go out into the woods and camp. And I got this one at the BX. Now, like I said, Colin Fletcher, he's got his little camp set up right there, but that's the stove that he uses in this. And he talks about how basically when you're backpacking, you're basically like a turtle. You're carrying your house on your back, and it depends on your situation. I've never carried a life vest, but I haven't been on water. But usually, whenever I camped and stuff as a kid, we never had a stove like this. It was always over the fire, or something like that, or they break out a Coleman, double burner stove, with built. It's like a little grill. It has 2 burners. You pump it up and everything. Now the difference between this type, these are old school, and I was thinking about nostalgia also. How things evolve, why people, leave something behind that was working perfectly fine for the latest and greatest and newest. And, camping or backpacking, if you ever, when you're young, it's fine. When you get older, this stuff adds up. All these grams, ounces, and stuff add up. And you want to cut down the weight and everything. So, to make a long story short on this one, these were always expensive. And I was on the BX, and I couldn't afford the regular ones they had there, but they had this one marked down for half price because it was missing one of these. See, I made my own. I'm going to get soot all over me, but I safety wired it in place and everything. But it was missing one of these. And so they cut the price down to like $20 or something like that. It was really cheap. And I thought, wow, man, I've been reading about this, and this is what he uses and everything. And now I can get my own, I can get my own chance to have one. And it's brass, it's well made, it's heavy, And like this one with fuel in it and stuff, and it takes like white gas. Now some people would put unleaded gasoline in there. You could do that, but it's gonna foul up the burner more often, because unleaded gas a lot of times has a bunch of crap in it. It's not the same as like Coleman fuel, but it'll work if it has to. They've used gasoline in these before, but that's what white gas is basically. But you got like a little cup. Let's see, got soot everywhere. Little handle, and the way this thing works, there's no pump. Now you can get a little pump for them. They made it, for high altitudes and stuff like that. But the way you would do it is you would put some fuel down here or some fuel paste, and you would set it on fire and heat this up. Now Colin talks about a way of, you could just carry this thing, and the heat from your hand and everything will warm it enough so that when you open this valve up, a little bit of fuel will spit out there. But most time people will just take the existing fuel and let some trickle down into this reservoir, and then shut the valve and light it. And if you time it just right, I mean, he would talk about, he likes to drink tea, so he would take the paper wrapping from a tea bag and stuff, and try to time it just right to where it just about burnt down, and you can still use the flame and what's burning to light this thing up. And it's the noise. The noise of this one is one thing. This is not a stealth camping type of stove, but it'll put out a lot of heat. This thing will get cherry red. It'll put out a lot of heat, and you learn also not to leave this key in there too, because it's attached directly to where all this heat is coming from, and you go, I'm going to regulate this, and you regulate burning flesh off of your hand. Some people would separate that. I just leave it, attached to it, because all these years it didn't get lost. I say I bought this in like 1979 or so from the BXN. So it's got these little slots, a couple of little slots. You can just drop this guy in there. And this cup will also burn your lip too if you try to use it. It doesn't transfer heat that well. Now, you can use something else. They still make this. I think it's made in China now, but you can take this cup, which is just a little bit wider, and set it over there. It rattles a little bit more, but it covers it. Plenty of room. And it's stainless steel. It's got a little lip on it. Just a little bit better option. But I always leave this with it. You got two in case you meet a friend on the trail or something. Like I said, these are pretty good, and they're pretty cheap. You can get them at Walmart or someplace like that. But yeah, the noise this thing makes, because it self-pressurizes after that thing radiator gets heated up. I'll link a video of when I fired this thing up. You're basically, it doesn't simmer that well. You can get it to do it. You don't have to pump it or anything. You may have to insulate it on really cold weather, with like a piece of something, down there. And these things can get like overpressurized. I've never had it happen, but it has a pressure relief valve built in to the filler right there. And I usually carried, like a little funnel or something like that, and a spare fuel bottle. You could carry, usually an aluminum one like this. Now, these things are heavy. This is 1.25 pounds all by itself. And they're a little, like I said, fidgety, to mess with and everything. But they're reliable. That's what I was thinking about. You know, a lot of times technology evolves, and we leave things by the wayside. You know, we say, "Oh, well, it's like LED lights and stuff." You know, they're much more efficient, they're much brighter, and everything. We leave them by the wayside. But if you grew up with, and you have fond memories of using something archaic and old or whatever, then if you get your hands on one, or you have one and you go to fire it up, um, it can bring back memories. Hopefully, good memories. You know, of just enjoying nature, being out there, not worrying about any stress. And like I said, you know, most of the time that was the fun of camping, was cooking over a open fire or something. You know, I mean, but some places had regulations where you couldn't have an open fire, but you could have a stove, a camp stove. This also works well for car camping or like motorcycle. You throw it in your saddlebag, and then if you've got water with you, you can always make tea or coffee, which is usually what you want to do, is boiled, you know, water. This thing won't completely fit over there with that one on. Now, you know, uh, because this, like I said, is fidgety and fiddly and everything, after that, I went with one where you pressurize it. It's the Coleman. This didn't come with it, but I bought it later on. But, you know, it's like a little cook set. And same principle. It's trying to vaporize the fuel, you know, atomize it and everything. But it's got a little pump. This is a Peak one. The legs fold out. I took the instructions off, but there's, you know, ones are run and heat and everything else. You know, I mean, what is it? Prime, run, and I don't know. And then this is your flame regulation. Now, the advantage to this was nice little blue flame in here, a lot quieter, self-contained, you know, in one little package right here. Fairly sturdy, you know, big surface area to put pots on and everything. Like I said, it's got these little legs that fold out. Now, this particular one, got the instructions right here. This particular one, turn that light back on, was recalled later on. They wanted you to return it because some of them had the seam give. Mine was working fine. I wasn't going to recall anything. But, see, it's a lightweight backpack stove. 8,500 BTU on off. But, you know, pumping it, you'd have to pump it up to get it pressurized. And I'm going to leave all that crap in there. I switched to this because you could regulate it down to a simmer. I mean, it can get down real close. Now, most of the time, like I said, I wasn't a chef out there making all kinds of weird stuff. I was just boiling water. And so you're carrying all this extra weight, all this stuff, you know. After a while, you start realizing, hey, why is it so heavy when I go backpacking? Why is this stuff so heavy, you know? What am I using all the time? I'm not using this, you know. This really increases the weight. So a lot of people want like butane. This is where you switch over to. This makes more sense. You got this. You don't have to fiddle with it. You got a little bag. You got your little burner. You know, your little burner unit that sits on top of the fuel. And then you can carry, you know, fork, spoon, and a lighter in here. And it's much more compact. Now, the disadvantage is, you know, these don't work as well in super cold and all that, and high temperature. I mean, high altitude. But same with like alcohol. A lot of times now I've just switched to what makes more sense is just, you know, a Transgia or a little, you know, wood burning outfit set up. But before, After the Peak 1, I progressed to the MSR stove, you know, where separate fuel and a little windscreen, and it worked out all right. It was okay, but it was just more, you know, more bigger and more stuff to spread around. This was compact and had everything I needed in there. But like I said, now the fuel between these two, these are much more efficient. They don't work in everything, but I still have these. This will last forever. You get an old one of these. I don't know about the new ones, but as long as they follow the same, they should last basically the same. It's nothing super complicated about these. They last basically forever. Buy once, and you know that's some of the best $20 I ever spent in my life on this thing, and it's the nostalgia. You hear it fire up. You hear that like V1 buzz bomb sound. You know, this rocket thing going off, and it brings back memories. Yeah, it smells and it's loud, but it'll boil your water pretty quick, you know, and none of these other things will remind you of that. Now, if you didn't grow up with it, you know, you lose the nostalgia part, you know, like, oh, well, I'm not going to go with that. That's too heavy. And meh, meh, meh. It's cool, you know, to flashback. That's all old people got later on. It's just memories and stuff, you know. You get to a point where you can't do a lot of this stuff. So all you got to do is remember what you did. Well, if you've got something tangible, you know, to relate back to it, you say, oh, yeah, I remember. You know, this is the one I carried many a time. All I usually made was like oatmeal, maybe fried some eggs, boiled some water for tea or hot cocoa, coffee. But yeah, I didn't do a lot of elaborate chef stuff. But it was nice to have that. It was nice to have that sitting there because it was just reassuring. And if you're all out alone in the woods and everything and you fire one of these up, man, everything's going to hear you for a while. Animals are going to know, hey, there's a human over there, because that's not a normal sound. Unless somebody's, you know, flying overhead, because it makes quite a bit of noise. But like I said, I'll link the video because I ramble a little bit on too much. But I was just thinking, yeah, before the internet, before YouTube, your influencers were books or maybe magazines, TV or movie shows. And a lot of times you couldn't be out camping or whatever, but you could read about it and kind of get he was kind of like a hippie. He had a laid back attitude, you know, of, yeah, so it takes time. So what? You know, that's what you're here out in nature for, is to unwind and relax and get away from the hustle and bustle. But there you go. That's just a little rambling on about various backpacking stoves and what I've evolved to now. Of course, you get soot, dirty hands. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.